Welcome to New Independence Network. So, there's another shooting. We know about this. We've heard it in the news. But what we haven't heard are some very important questions that need to be asked and answered. When I first heard of the shooting, I don't get emotional about a lot of things that happen in the news, in the country. I just don't. It's not my makeup. I'm more logical in many ways. And emotion only gets you so far. Emotion only takes you to a certain point. I like to say emotion starts the engine, but logic drives the train. And what I mean by that is when you are emotional, you have that sudden surge that might get you going, but it's very, very difficult, nearly impossible to maintain because emotion is exhausting and it burns you out. And it will burn out. 9/11. There was a lot of emotion over 9/11. And it fueled the fire in this country for quite some time. The problem that you have is reacting to that emotion too quickly. Government officials reacting to emotion too quickly is irresponsible. You have to be very, very logical. You could hear the emotion, you could feel it, but then you have to put that past you and move on and approach it logically. I'm not saying ignore the crisis, ignore the situation. I'm saying consider it, but then look at it logically. Because if you react on emotion, that's when wars start. That's when big problems happen. So you have to look at the logics of the situation. Politicians who do this are predominantly Democrats. Sometimes Republicans do, but for the most part, they don't. The liberal agenda is all based on emotion. Everything. Global warming or climate change or whatever they're calling it today is they're going to kill us all. They're going to kill your children. They're going to destroy your futures. It's about emotion. There's nothing logical there. Then they try to back it up and say, well, scientists agree. Well, where's the facts? Where are the actual facts? Because when you go into logic, just using that as a soundbite, scientists agree to my emotion, so my emotion's justified. Well, when you look at the facts, the truth is that the facts dispel what your scientists agree to. Most recently, the NOAA deleted the cold weather data from this year. Why? If the NOAA is responsible for predicting weather and determining the weather trends around the world, the country, then why would they delete the cold weather data? And I'll tell you why. Because it refuted their findings that the world is getting warmer. It's not. It's a lie. But that's a totally different topic, and I don't want to divert from the main point. Another issue that the Democrats love to use emotion for is the poor DACA children. The poor children. How can you rip them from their families? First off, most of these DACA kids are in their 20s and 30s now. So they're no longer kids. And since they were 18 years old, they had numerous chances to apply for citizenship. Numerous. But why aren't they citizens? Why are they still illegals? Because they're able to take advantage of a system, not pay back into it, and not be held accountable, and live off of our tax dollars that we pay into. Logically, you'd say, DACA kids are of age to, they're no longer kids, so they're of age to actually apply for citizenship. and they didn't do that, and they're not paying taxes, and is it safe if we don't have them registered, and are they assimilating into the country? But that's not how liberals work. The left always wants it to be emotion. Poor kids, and what are we supposed to do? Tearing them from their families. Everything is emotion. Even if someone has the audacity to say, God forbid, in their minds, the audacity to say chain migration. Chain migration. It's a very simple term. Chain migration. What it means is when a person comes over and they're illegal, and if they're a child thrown on a train from Venezuela or Central America or wherever, and they come into this country without a sponsor, just by themselves, dropped off, to be raped on a train by the other illegals that are on that train with them, then they're allowed to bring in their families, their parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles. They are part of the chain. Maybe you should call it family tree migration, because liberals and their emotions, again, love to stoke the emotions, and they say chain migration is racist. Oh, because that reminds people of slavery, and that's no, it's not. No, that's not at all what it's about. But you're turning it because you're playing off of the emotion. The left thrive specifically on emotion. That's why they're failing, because emotion burns out. They don't use logic. They don't use common sense. Anybody who tries to start a war and perpetuate a war to maintain their presidency is using emotion, and that is not going to last. Number one, after it initially burns out, people will get tired of feeling the emotion. I just want to put it behind me. I'm just tired of always being angry. I am just tired of the fighting. I'm tired of the drama. How many times have we said that, especially over the last election? I'm just tired of the back and the forth and the drama and the emotion and the he said, she said. How about we just talk about logic and facts? And that's how Trump really won. He used a lot of logic and facts. Yeah, there's some emotion in there too. The lock her up emotion and all that. But it was based on logic and facts. Hillary Clinton broke the law, so she should go to prison. Illegals are coming in this country, and they are not being monitored, and they're committing crimes. And they're allowed to stay in this country, and then our tax dollars pay for them to be in prison, or they're being released and then committing the crimes again. That's logic. Emotion doesn't sustain. It just doesn't sustain. So when George H.W. Bush tried to maintain the Iraq war in his second term of his presidency, well, he was ignoring the fact that the economy was not as great as it probably could have been or should have been. It was great under Reagan. It still wasn't terrible, but it wasn't as good. It was a brief recessionary period. And all he would say was, well, it's getting better, folks. It's getting better. I remember I was working for a college news station at the time and reporting the news. And I was reading The Wire as it came across. And the ABC News had quotes from him saying, look, the economy is getting better. It's getting better. But they would never play those quotes because they were in the tank for Clinton. Well, Bush was trying to use emotion, but then so was Clinton. However, he also used some type of fact. It's the economy, stupid. Logic. You know, I feel your pain. Yeah, he used that one. Sure. That was his emotional edge, but that got them in. It pulled them in. Look, he's one of us. He actually cares. I feel your pain. And then we talk about the economy and how can we fix it. And he spoke about it. And he connected with the people. He did a great job. I hate to admit it, but he did a great job in the campaign. You know, he did a great job in the campaign. Obama was all about the emotion. There was no logic in anything he said. But with Obama, it was emotion on top of emotion on top of race. It was a huge deal with Obama because he could say, change is going to come. Blanket statement meant nothing. Today we're going to this is when the sea levels fall. And this is when the air gets cleaner. No logic to that at all. Purely based on emotion. Yes, we can. purely based on emotion. Yes, we can. Si se puente, or whatever. That was no who's saying that was? Was it Si se puente? I think it is. Yes, we can. That was Cesar Chavez. Cesar Chavez? Yeah, Chavez. Whatever his name is. Chavez, the tyrant, the communist, the radical. That was Che Guevara, that's it. Cesar Chavez is a boxer. Che Guevara. Che Guevara, that was his saying. Yes, we can. Si se puente. Or however it's said. But that was what Obama used. How about that? A communist radical. Yes, we can. And people loved it because they loved the emotion. It's all about emotion with Obama and race. And that also added to the emotion. The emotion of, I could vote for the first black president. First off, there's 98% of the black population who are going to vote for Obama because he's black, specifically on the color of his skin. Period. And that's going to happen. I understand that. That's a given. Regardless of how unqualified he is, 98% of them didn't care because he was black. Then you add that to the whites who voted for him. There are the idiot whites who are liberals. Of course, they're going to vote for him anyway just because he's a Democrat. But then there's the Republican whites or the independent whites who, instead of using logic, they used emotion. But we have to vote for the first black president. Otherwise, people are going to think I'm racist. Or we have to vote for the first black president because I want to be on the right side of history. And they do. Simply because they want to do the right thing in their eyes. Emotion. And that emotion was, they were able to perpetuate that throughout the entire campaign. And one of the reasons they were able to perpetuate that through the entire campaign, which gave us 8 years of Obama, which was awful and horrible, but I can also say thank God for that, because if it wasn't for 8 years of Obama, we wouldn't have at least 4 years of Trump. 4 years of a grown-up actually in there doing something. Oh, you're calling him a grown-up when he tweets. I don't give a crap if he tweets. Grown-ups tweet all the time. The fact of the matter is, he's a businessman. And he's doing more for this country. He's done more for this country in his first year, in his first, really, 6 months than Obama did in 8 years. He actually cares. He's actually got his pulse on what needs to be done in this country. But because we got 8 years of Obama based on purely emotion, it was also exacerbated by the fact that John McCain was inept. An old doddering fool, traitor to this country. How can you call him a traitor? I've called him a traitor before, and I'll go to my grave calling him a traitor to this country. He was taken captive, and I'll explain that to you right now, then I'll go back to my original point. For those who haven't listened enough, who haven't heard me enough, here's why. John McCain is a traitor to this country because he was taken captive as a prisoner of war, along with many other prisoners of war. That's not why he's a traitor. He's a traitor because as they were beating him and abusing him like they did the others, he caved and gave them everything. He caved and gave them everything. And they specifically went after him because his daddy was a high-ranking admiral in the Navy. But then they treated him better. They gave him special treatment because his dad was a ranking admiral in the Navy. But the other ones, his other prisoners, did he negotiate their freedom? No. He didn't care. He wanted himself out of there. And he didn't care about his country. He's a traitor. And he's been making his entire career off the fact that he got caught and got his ass beat in a Vietnamese prisoner of war camp. Congratulations. You made your whole career on getting caught. I have more respect, and this is where I agree with Trump. I have more respect for those who either weren't caught or were caught and didn't use it to help themselves over others. Has McCain done anything with the POWs? Anything? No. Well, he's got brain cancer now, so he's probably not going to be around this much longer. And his mental fitness needs to be considered, but take into consideration in any kind of decision he makes, because brain cancer is going to screw up your brain chemistry. But, back to the original point. If John McCain was not such a coward and a milquetoast during the election of 2008, then Obama would not be president. But McCain was afraid to criticize Obama because, again, of race. And it was all about race. The whole thing was about race for Obama and emotion. So here we are today. The shooting happened. Shootings have happened. A lot of them happened under Obama. No emotion then. That was one of the few times that, see, Obama never showed emotion unless it involved a black person. Just by chance. He never did. He never showed emotion unless it involved a black family or an injustice to a black person. For example, the professor who was the neighbor saw a gentleman trying to break into a house, or what she thought was breaking into a house. She didn't recognize him. She called the police. The police showed up, asked him for his ID. Gates, the gentleman's name was Gates. He was a Harvard professor. Called him up. The cops showed up. And they asked him for his ID. He refused to show his ID and said it was racial profiling. Well, if it's your house, who cares? Cops have asked me for my ID when I was trying to get in my house when I was younger. I had to prove I lived there. And I'm white. But he called racial profiling. And Obama's first response? Police didn't even have the facts. Police acted stupidly. So discredit the police. And that really was the beginning of the entire downslide against the law enforcement in this country. Obama empowered them right there. First thing, knee-jerk reaction, police were wrong. Didn't have the proof, didn't have the facts, didn't care. Trayvon Martin. First comment he makes, without the facts. First comment he makes, if I had a son, he could look like Trayvon Martin. That doesn't do anything. You're the president of the United States. Keep emotion out of it. Go logic. That's a ridiculous statement. Sit back and say we got to wait on the facts. I mean, hell, Bill Clinton did that when we landed on Mars. The probe was on Mars. And he said something along the lines of, we have to base this on the facts. We have to find out what the facts are. Get information. Get data. Don't get excited. It's cool that we did it. We landed a probe on Mars, but come on, get some facts. Whatever the facts are, we need to know what the facts are first. And you're the president of the United States. You don't need to be knee-jerk reactionary about this stuff. Offer your sympathies. My sympathies to the family of Trayvon Martin. I'm going to reserve any judgment until we have facts. I'll let the facts reveal themselves. Had he waited, he would have realized that while Zimmerman, the white Hispanic Zimmerman, a term, by the way, never heard the term before, never heard white Hispanic before. If you had a little bit of Hispanic in you, like Obama has half white in him, or half black in him, half black, he's considered black. A little bit Hispanic, you're considered Hispanic. He looks Hispanic, right? But he's a white Hispanic because that plays better to the race card that the media likes to perpetuate, that white people are dangerous and evil in this country, of course. Until they need them to parade in front of the camera to use them for their broadcasting and for their ratings, like they did in the recent shooting in Florida. We'll get back to that point. So, Trayvon Martin, had they looked at the facts, was being followed by George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman saw a suspicious character in the rain wearing a hoodie, walking around the neighborhood. Didn't know who he was. Didn't recognize him. He's neighborhood watch. Maybe a little overzealous, but he also wants to protect his neighborhood and keep it safe. Wouldn't you like to have your neighborhood be safe? Calls the police. They say don't follow him. He kind of keeps following them. But Trayvon Martin, who was supposed to be on his phone with his girlfriend, telling his girlfriend that there's a guy following me. Well, if you have the phone to your ear, why don't you call 911 and say, ma'am, I'm being followed by somebody? Or why don't you, 17-year-old, 6'3" black man, not the 12-year-old cherubic teen that they showed in the media, the little young cherub, innocent little lamb, 12-year-old kid. No. He was a 17-year-old with crunk in his mouth, tattooed, smoking a J, Trayvon Martin. Why didn't he run away? If you're being followed by somebody, why didn't he run away? if you're familiar with the neighborhood and you had a place to go, then it should have been very easy for you to run to the house and say, hey, there's some crazy guy following me. I don't know who he is. And then call the police from there. But he didn't do that. Poor victim Trayvon Martin went, hid in a bush, waited for George Zimmerman to come by, then jumped out at the much smaller Zimmerman and started to attack him, beating his head against the pavement or the ground or whatever it was. Zimmerman's heard on the recording screaming for help, and the neighbors said, yeah, you know what? He attacked him. I saw it. He was on top of him. He was grounding, pounding him. Zimmerman isn't guilty. He fired in self-defense. Stand your ground rules. I would do the exact same thing in that situation. If somebody attacked me and I had a gun, I'm shooting them. Very simple. Best way to get him off me. I'm a big dude, so it's, good luck trying to ground and pound me. But if I'm in that situation, yeah, you're getting shot. But if Trayvon Martin was such a victim, why did he attack George Zimmerman? I had the same situation happen to me in college many years ago. I was in the dorms, and we were having a thing. It was called the primal scream. At midnight at exam time, you open the windows, everyone just yells. You yell to vent your frustration. And it became kind of a fun shouting match across the dorms, across the quad. And one of the RAs knocked on the door and said, "Stop doing that! You have to yell." Little thing, little Hispanic girl, short thing, maybe 5'2". And I said, "I'm not doing anything but yelling. It's completely within my rights to yell." I closed the door and I started mouthing off to my friend in the room. Oh boy, she calls that threatening. And all I'm doing is yelling, making noise. So how threatening could that be if I threw eggs at her dorm room door? Just joking around. I'm not gonna really do it because it's stupid. And I was a kid. And she knocks on the door. I answer the door again. I heard what you said, and she steps toward me, and with her arms crossed, right at me. I said, "Okay." I found that a threat. I said, "You do?" I said it within the privacy of this room, and I didn't do anything. Now, if there were eggs on your door, then you can follow through with that. But I just said what I said. Long story short, she reported me to the residence director, who called me into his office and said she felt threatened by you. She did? She felt threatened by me? If she was threatened by me, then why did she walk towards me when I was in the doorway? I'm 6'4". She's 5'2". I'm a former football player. College football player. She walked at me because she wasn't threatened. So Trayvon Martin must have been really threatened because he ran at George Zimmerman. Yeah, I guess that was a big threat. No, if you're threatened by somebody, you split. Unless they're right in your face. Then you have to defend yourself. But he wasn't in his face. But it was all about emotion. Obama took it and went emotion, and that's what the left does. You see, Obama was you might be saying, well, how are you still on Obama? He's no longer president. Because the president, play on words, but the president sets the precedent. Obama was a community organizer. Their whole job, the whole job of a community organizer is to stir up trouble. They're a rabble-rouser. They're a troublemaker. They stir up dissent, protests, anger, frustration. That's what they do. And Obama was good at that. Clearly, because that's what he made the main objective of his presidency for 8 years. To stir up trouble. Why do you think Black Lives Matter rose to such prominence? Do you hear about Black Lives Matter now? Nope. No, you don't. You still hear cop shootings, though, because the fires were stoked. And every once in a while, that emotion can still stir up, and someone can react on that little bit of emotion. They watch more videos online, they watch the rallies, they read the stories, they're told the stories by their friends, and that emotion pops up. But people are getting tired of it. And thank God it's starting to decrease. But Obama never once spoke out against killing cops. Never once. The president sets the precedent. The actions of the people are determined by the actions of their leader. That's where we are where we are today. All the mass shootings that we had under Obama's presidency, did he once have all the people to the White House to discuss how to fix the situation in this country? Did he once go to the location of the shooting to talk to the families and meet with the wounded? Nope. Not at all. Obama wanted to work off the emotion. You'd think he would. You think, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this as a photo op. But then there's a lot of questions about the validity of some of the shootings that happened under Obama. Sandy Hook is a big question. Some people say, oh, conspiracy theorists. Well, go online and look at some videos. Some YouTubers do better work as investigative journalists than the mainstream journalists do, than many of them do. They're poring over hours of footage. There's a very lengthy YouTube video. It has to be at least an hour plus long. And it involves like 5 different YouTubers who analyzed footage and revealed crisis actors, revealed people who had been used in different media campaigns for the government that were also quote-unquote parents at Sandy Hook of children. And a lot of the same things, I'm not saying what happened in Florida did not happen, but this is what leads to the questions. These are the questions that aren't being asked, and they're very logical questions. Question number 1. We don't know the whole story, but question number 1. A 19-year-old expelled student allegedly walked into the freshman building of this high school as they were being dismissed to go to the buses. Well, we find out that 19-year-old formerly expelled student, Miami Herald reported, was not expelled after all. And that matches a story from a student who was speaking on camera who said that she was actually in the hallway talking to this student when she heard the shots being fired elsewhere. Then she said it sounded like 2 different guns. But if the student was expelled and he was a shooter, why was she talking to him in the hallway when he didn't have a gun? But that isn't being followed up on because it doesn't fit the narrative. But you have to ask that question. That's my point. But even if he was the shooter, he had carried an AR-15 into the school. How did he walk in with a gun? Oh, he had it in a backpack. Okay. How big was this backpack? Can you break down an AR-15? As a former Army arms room officer for most of my 6 years in the military, the AR-15 is very, very similar to the military M16A2. The M16A2, the difference is you have safe for your settings. You have safe where you cannot fire it. You have semi, which is one shot at a time. Every time you pull the trigger, a bullet's fired. Then another round chambers, pull the trigger, bullets fired. So it's reaction. It reacts to your action. Then there's burst. Burst is you pull the trigger, 3 shots come out. Pop, pop, pop. They switched to burst because the soldiers were expelling too much ammo. And the M16A1, which they had during Vietnam War, they brought that in, replaced the M14, which is the wooden weapon. They replaced the M14 with the M16A1 and works better in all different climates. It doesn't jam as much and is more magazine fed. That had the auto setting. So if you just switch to auto, you pull your trigger and just and everything fires out. I had those when I first started in the military. And then we switched over to the A2 about a couple of years in. Just a minor improvement. They got rid of the auto and it went to burst. Well, the AR-15 doesn't have the burst setting. It just has safe and semi. Safe, can't fire it. Semi, you can fire it. And again, every trigger pull is one shot. You have to pop, 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 pop every time you pull a trigger. And you can fire them pretty quickly, but you can't fire 400 rounds in a minute. I've heard some people say it's not going to happen. And you got to change magazines because you probably have about a 15-round magazine, 10-round magazine. And that takes a couple seconds. So you're stopping to reload. Yeah, if someone has a gun, that person's dead. Unless they're undercover. But he walked in with an M16. Or, I'm sorry, an AR-15. An AR-15 can be broken down. Pull the pin in the middle. You flip the front stock up. Flip the back stock back. Right? And then you can fold it in half, kind of. But it doesn't break down very small, and it's very awkward and weird. So it's not going to cleanly fit into a backpack unless it's a huge backpack. Really big backpack. That's like bigger than your back, or as big as your whole back. For a 19-year-old kid, we don't know how tall he was. It's got to be a really long backpack. So he was able to walk in with a backpack with an AR-15 in it if you're believing the stories. Then pull the fire alarm. Now, while the kids are walking out, so he's in a building with freshmen, the question I ask is, where were the teachers who were monitoring the freshmen as they were leaving for their buses? Oh, but they weren't leaving for their buses. They were leaving because it was a fire alarm being pulled. But then now we're hearing that there was kids in the closet, and there are recordings from kids that were videotaping themselves in the closet saying, I think this is just a drill, but then they hear a gunshot. I don't know if this is just an active shooter drill. And one student said they had an active shooter drill earlier in the day. Now they're having another one. Then a fire alarm, they said, was pulled. So there's a lot of misinformation going on here. So if Nicholas Cruz, the quote-unquote shooter, was walking into the school in the opposite direction of freshmen who were leaving, why were they leaving if it wasn't bus dismissal? If he's the one that pulled the fire alarm, why was he walking into the school when they were leaving? Or did he walk in, pull the fire alarm, they started leaving, he was walking against the flow? And why aren't teachers saying, well, where you're going, get out, you got to go in the wrong way? So why wasn't he seen? That's a serious question. Teachers are going to monitor kids when they're walking out of the school for a fire alarm. So where were the teachers? But on top of that, where are the video cameras? Every school has video cameras now. They record everything. They have them at the door. They have them in the hallways. So where are the video cameras? And where is the video footage of Nicholas Cruz walking into the school shooting his AR-15 or walking the hallways? We have video footage from Columbine. We have photos of the aftermath in Columbine. We have photos of the aftermath at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. Where are the photos from the school in Florida? Goes along lines with, where are the photos from Sandy Hook? Do you really want to see dead children? No. But there would be blood. There would be carnage. You see, the media is the left. And the left love emotion. Now, don't you think that the photos of either a dead child or dead teenager, or blood in a school classroom, in a school hallway, amidst books and clutter, tying the school environment to carnage, wouldn't that be an absolute emotional jackpot for the left? You don't think one aspiring journalist and all the thousands of people out there now that have cameras or video cameras, not one person is taking a photo? They take photos of their food, for crying out loud. Not one person is taking a photo of any of the aftermath at any of these shootings. Not one aspiring hungry journalist who's trying to make a name for him or herself. TMZ takes photos and videos of everything. Why aren't they there? There's paparazzi all over the place. Some kid walking out of the school, quick couple shots. Some private investigator. What if the kid get past the police lines? You don't think somebody can pay their or bribe their way through? It happens all the time. It happens all the time. So there's maybe ask questions. Where's the security camera footage? Where are the photos? Where is any video evidence of anything? I'm not saying it didn't happen, but we haven't seen it. So it makes me scratch my head. We haven't seen any proof of it. And we see proof of everything. There's a murder, there's a death, there's always some kind of a photo of the crime scene, chalk outlines of the bodies. Imagine the chalk outline of a little kid being shown. How much emotion would that generate? Well, why aren't the left using it? If they have it, if it exists, then why don't they use it? Unless it doesn't exist. Which makes me have to ask the question logically. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it, does the tree fall in the woods? If there's a shooting and people are dead and we haven't seen proof of anybody dead, then did they die? And did the shooting actually happen? Well, I'm sure it did. I'm not saying it didn't, but I'm saying it causes you to have to ask the question, and the media will not ask the question. They just won't. Other question is, where is it? There's supposed to be an armed security guard at the school, from what I heard. Where was the armed security guard? Well, apparently the armed security guard was in the main office. Well, why? Well, they said the fire alarm was pulled, so we went to the main office. Okay, but once there was a shooter, why wouldn't the armed security guard go run off and try to stop the shooter? That's a great question. So there's a lot of questions. Why was Nicholas Cruz in court and look like a zombie when he's having his parole hearing? Or it's not his parole hearing, his bail hearing. Why does he look like a zombie when he's standing with his lawyers, his defenders? The same as the Joker shooting. The guy looked like a zombie in court. Looked like he was doped up on something. Was he? I don't know. But it's interesting how they're both doped up. Both kind of outcasts. Both bad kids that people didn't know about. Cruz apparently has a mental issue. I don't know. You don't know. So a lot of questions have to be asked. How come one of the students in the school said in a recent interview with another media source, I think it was InfoWars actually, yes, I know they're a conspiracy site and I'm not, but this person did have an interview with them, and he is a student at the school. And he said that he heard two gunshots. He heard two guns firing. It's a question that has to be asked. I raised the same questions with the Vegas shooting. The Vegas shooting, you had a machine gun being fired. And I've heard enough machine guns. I've run enough machine gun ranges in my time to know what a machine gun sounds like. And that was two machine guns firing over each other. That's number one. It wasn't just one machine gun. It was two. However, when you look up at the window of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, there's no muzzle flash coming from that window. A machine gun, when fired, emits a muzzle flash. And at nighttime, that is a very, very bright muzzle flash. No muzzle flash when I heard those gunshots, which makes you say, and a lot of people said it was recorded. And it was a bunch of crisis actors on the scene. And then when you see videos from the scene, go to YouTube, go to Twitter. Look for the crisis actors, look for the video from the Vegas shooting, and see all the proof that they have of people who were pretending to be wounded. And the first responders who were there who were kind of going through the motions but not really saving people because they didn't have to. It's disturbing, but the thing, and in Vegas you don't know who the shooter is. We do, but the one person who had proof of the shooter who said he saw them is now out of the country. We never hear from them again. So it's just there's far too many questions to be asked. I'm not saying that people weren't killed at this shooting in Florida. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is one of two things. Either A, if this was a false flag, as some would say, then the kids were not killed, but people are saying they were. Or, and that's wrong. That's wrong. And we'll get to even more so why that's wrong. Creating a situation like this, that's not true. Or, if this was an actual shooting, but it was not Nicholas Cruz that did it, or if he was put up to it and did it, and it was done for the sake of political gain to drive a anti-gun agenda, then people lost lives for the sake of a political agenda. Wouldn't be the first time in history that happened. To forward an agenda, letting people lose lives. Pearl Harbor. They knew it was going to happen. They knew it was coming. They let it go because it's the only way to get us into the war. That's issues. That's a serious issue. But you see, then you got to stop and think logically. Who did the Democrats expect to be president? Who did almost everybody expect to be president right now? Hillary Clinton. What did Hillary Clinton want? She said in an interview, she wanted Australian-style gun confiscation, where they paid you money and they took your guns from you. So she wants guns gone. She wants them to take guns away from everybody. That was her objective. We know that's the left's absolute objective, is to take away all guns. That's exactly what they want to do. They may hide it with some pretty terms and fancy words, but the fact of the matter is the ultimate end game is gun confiscation. They don't want the masses to have guns because they're about socialism and control, tyrannical control. And the only way to do that is if the people don't have their guns. Hitler did that. Took away all their guns first, and guess what? Very easy for him to control them. So Hillary Clinton wanted gun control. She wants gun confiscation. She was supposed to be president. Now, how long does it take to set up these shootings? Vegas, Florida shooting. The buses were chartered. Who paid for the charter of the buses? Another question. How are the rallies so quickly organized in Washington, D.C. with all those people there? How did that many people get there so quickly? How did they have 5,000 people in a town hall that fast for CNN? All anti-gun, which became an anti-gun rally. Any memorial has been hijacked. It's now becoming an anti-gun rally with a lot of hate speech. Well, you're losing all sympathy from us. Anybody who has any sympathy for you, you've just pissed it away. Because you're dancing on the graves of the dead and using it for political gain instead of trying to find out what the real problem is. Well, the real problem is, if you want to go down to the basic simplicity of it, the FBI dropped the ball again. They were notified about this young man, this Nicholas Cruz. So if he was the shooter, then why didn't they stop him? But there have been like 8 different shootings in this country that the FBI dropped the ball on every single time. San Bernardino, Pulse nightclub, the bombing in Boston, all these tragedies and attacks. FBI said, oopsie. But don't you have like 37,000 area agents all over the place in the country? Don't you have all these agents out there, field agents? Shouldn't they have solved the situation? Oh no, because the heads of the FBI are too busy trying to come up with fake information to get rid of Donald Trump because they have a political agenda. Barack Obama has decimated this country. In 8 years, he's decimated this country. And if Hillary Clinton had been reelected, the decimation would continue. It's going to take a generation, I think, unless Trump can work a miracle, to bleed out all of the poison that Obama has injected into the system of this country. The IRS is corrupted. The FBI, the CIA, the Justice Department, they've all been corrupted by Obama. And we have to try to go in and suck out the poison in every single one of those areas. It's a disgrace what happened. But the fact of the matter is that no matter what you believe, you have to ask the question. All that stuff was planned. It takes time to plan the Vegas shooting. Coordination. The guy was there for several days beforehand anyway. You don't just walk into a hotel with a bag of guns and take a service elevator in a casino that has thousands of cameras and not one camera sees a guy walking into the hotel and up the elevator and down the hallway and into his room. Not one. But you don't put all that planning into something overnight. So this stuff could have been planned for quite some time. And if it were planned for quite some time, don't you think the possibility that the planning took place, and imagine if Hillary Clinton is president. Vegas happens. She's able to use that and use the emotions of that. And then Florida happens. And she's able to use the emotions from that. And then she's able to say, this is just another reason why we need to get rid of guns. And I've already put in a liberal Supreme Court justice. So now the Supreme Court is in control by the left. So wouldn't it be very, very easy now for her to pass her agenda and say, we're going to get rid of all the guns and work on confiscation? Oh, yeah. If Hillary Clinton were president, believe me, all these pieces they have in place, they would be using them to the fullest emotional extent that they possibly can to get a ban gun passed. My concern with what Trump did when he was talking to the victims, he came to his office. Some were a lot angrier than they probably should have been. For a period of mourning, they seem to be quite angry, which is odd to me. I mean, there's stages of grief, but they turned it into an anti-gun agenda right off the bat, calling people killers, calling government people killers, calling Trump a killer when he's not the one that got the guy the gun. He wasn't even president when the guy got the gun. But he opened the doors to the Oval Office. He sat down and talked with everybody. He heard them out, and he said two things that made me go, One was we got to raise the legal age for people to get AR-15s. Raise the legal age. However, you can get 9mm, you can get handguns. You have to be of a certain age to get a handgun anyway, so you have to be of a certain age to get an AR-15. I have no real major problem with that, except for if they're going to make it 21, then how can people go to war and be able to use a gun in war? I guess you get an exception if you're military, but then you still can't drink or smoke. But then you got to consider as well, they're going crazy after the AR-15s, but 3% of the gun crimes committed are with AR-15s. I heard this last night from Laura Ingraham, matter of fact. 3% of the gun crimes in the country and shootings are caused by AR-15s, committed with AR-15s. 65% are with handguns. Just saying. They're going after the wrong gun, but it doesn't matter. And the handguns are much easier to conceal. You can conceal several on your person. So that was the first thing, is raising the age limit. Okay, I don't care. Then he says we have to increase the background checks as well. We have to make that more extensive background check. As long as they make it an more extensive background check and don't add new restrictions. Because here's my concern. If there is a shooting, mark my words, if there is if the Trump decides and the Republicans decide to add more restrictions to obtaining firearms, okay? If they do that and they give just a little bit, the Democrats will ensure that the mass shootings continue until we finally get to confiscation. If you add more gun restrictions, President Trump, Republicans, if you add more gun restrictions, the Democrats will ensure that the shootings continue until they have achieved full confiscation. Today it could be banning the sale of bump stocks. Tomorrow it could be requiring gun locks. The next day it could be increasing the age to purchase a gun. Then it's increase the age again. Then it's limit the gun access to certain people. And you keep adding and adding restriction after restriction. We already have some very strict gun laws. In Chicago, guns are banned. They're illegal. There's more shootings in Chicago. Where's the outcry there? In New Jersey, gun laws are some of the strictest in the country. And there's like a shooting every day in New Jersey. So where's the outcry there? The fact of the matter is that the Democrats are working off of emotion, and they're going to continue to work off of emotion. And they will continue to make sure that there are shootings in this country, one way or another. And the media will dance on the graves of the dead before the bodies are cold. They don't care about the inner city shootings. Nah, those are just black people. They don't care about that because Democrats don't care about black people. They only care about black people if they're shot by white cops. That's true. But when it's a white person that they can parade in front of the camera, stick a camera in their face during their grieving, and say, look what happened to this person. All because of guns. That's a way of hitting, they hope to hit the center of America. Maybe they're going to swing enough people. But they don't care about black people getting killed. It doesn't matter to them. They don't care about people that are killed by illegals. When those quote-unquote dreamers are killing people, or driving drunk and killing people in a DUI, or Kate Steinle getting shot on the pier in San Francisco, they don't care. Matter of fact, they applaud when the illegal is released from custody and found not guilty by a liberal judge. The media want to use the emotion when it serves them the best. Any way they possibly can to use the emotion to forward their agenda. And their agenda is the confiscation of guns. Okay. This is New Independence Network. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back again real soon.